Welcome to the Long Island Pine Barrens Society program. I'm Dick Amper.
And covering the Long Island Clean Water Partnership's 5th annual What Are We Going to Do conference for Kathleen Nasta. I'm David North of Walk Radio 97.5 FM.
Thanks for helping us do this, and we're here at the Education Center of the Suffolk County Water Authority. And can you tell our folks a little bit about the Education Center?
Created in 2014 to bolster the Suffolk County Water Authority's already robust efforts to educate the public about our sole source aquifer and how drinking water is supplied to Suffolk residents. The SCWA Education Center includes a variety of displays and educational opportunities for visitors of all ages. The cornerstone of the Education Center is a brand new electronic pump station model that allows visitors, by pushing different buttons, to simulate water flowing through the various components of a working pump station, including a treatment facility and an elevated tank. The center also features an extensive standing display about the history of Long Island's Central Pine Barrens region and its vital role in preserving our groundwater quality. There are also numerous exhibits allowing visitors to trace the development through the years of advancements in the laboratory equipment that make sure our water is safe and the meters used to gauge water use. A visit to the Education Center would not be complete without a visit to the Water Workshop, where kids can build their own mini aquifer, and be sure to see the presentation about how the water cycle works on Long Island.
Terrific, Dave. And with us to discuss the recent water conference at the Upsky Hotel in Long Island in Hauppauge are Jim Tierney, and he is with the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation, and with him is John Cameron. He's with the Long Island Regional Planning Council. Jim, tell us about this Long Island Nitrogen Action Plan. What's it do? How's it work?
Well, the most important thing is the words action. The most important thing is action.
Amen.
And what we're trying to do, along with the Long Island community, and it's really not a DEC thing, it's not a Department of Environmental Conservation effort.
The business and environmental community is involved.
Absolutely. And it's a community effort, it's a collaborative effort to try and figure out how to deal with nitrogen pollution. What does nitrogen pollution do? It's nutrients from wastewater, from farming, from fertilizer, from lawns and the like, that are essentially unbridled in many parts of Long Island. That's ruining the water. It can harm drinking water. It creates these different forms of algal blooms. You may hear of the mahogany tide, the rust tide, the red tide, harmful algal blooms that even have cyanobacteria in it that have toxins that can harm animals and people.
We've had fish kills, we've had turtles dying, the water turns funny colors, swimming facilities are closed. We got a problem. This is canary in the coal mine.
It is. Well, no, it's an explosion in the coal mine, given the way that the water quality is in Long Island. And this is a plan of action for what are we going to do. Now, it's a scientific study. It's what are the sources of nitrogen and nitrogen pollution? How are they getting into the water? And then what level of pollutant removals are necessary in order to make the water come back to what it's supposed to be. All science-based.
Terrific. John, the Long Island Regional Planning Council is playing a co-role with the department.
Yes, Dick.
Why is the business community in general and the Regional Planning Council in particular supportive of this effort?
Dick, the Regional Planning Council has been involved in water quality issues for decades. Going back to the Regional Planning Board back in the 1970s when they spearheaded the 208 study, which really laid out the framework.
That explained what the problem was.
Absolutely. Identified
we
the
didn't
problem,
really do anything about it.
They identified a lot of strategies. Unfortunately, due to a lot of funding issues, a lack of funding, a lot of the solutions were not implemented. But frankly, we've been working very intimately over the last number of years, and actually in December of '70 did a sustainability plan which developed the if you will, the linkage between the economy, the environment, quality of life, etc.
Can't have one without the other.
Can't have one without the other. As most Long Islanders know, we treasure and cherish our beaches, our parks, our quality of life. But as those in government, those in the business sector know that our economy is definitely tied to the quality of our environment also.
Good.
Speaking of economy and money, Jim, how is the Long Island Nitrogen Action Plan funded, and who's doing the work?
A lot of the work is done by consultants and contractors, federal agencies, the U.S. Geological Survey and the like. It's funded with a $5 million initial allotment from the New York State budget. But we've also found another $1 million to put toward the Peconic. And then a number of other people are kicking in with other funds. They're earning grants. There's even some individual local communities that are doing their own pieces of models that can fit into this. And so we're cobbling it together to some extent, but that original $6 million in state funds is then being guided by the local community exactly how do we go about doing
this. And the further
this.
we go down the road, the easier it is for us to go back and say, okay, we're a quarter of the way there, we need more. That's the kind of thing that Long Islanders can lobby government at all levels for.
Especially once you identify the problem. Once we start identifying the problem, these early action items, or what we call no regrets items, then what we can do is we can look to say we need to take it further to actually pursue implementation of the solutions.
Yep. Exactly. And just by the way, Suffolk County, for example, is doing a very elaborate study of a number of important items that fit into it. So everybody's kind of contributing scientific and technology know-how to it.
U.S. Geological Survey?
U.S. Geological
They're helping?
Absolutely. And the idea is to have something that's so technically robust that everybody has confidence in the path forward.
And federal, state, county, towns, everybody's involved.
Well, there's enormous competition for resources. New York is a gigantic state. What advantages might we on Long Island have collectively to bring our share, or maybe even a bigger portion of the share home to Long
Well, if I
Island?
can, from speaking as chair of the Regional Planning Council, is that Long Island contributes a tremendous amount to the state budget. Second to New York City, we are the second, really the major engine for New York State with regard to tax dollars. The water environment here is, as we know, we're an island. We're surrounded on all sides, plus we're a sole source aquifer. We get all our drinking water from the ground, as well as we have numerous streams, rivers, and lakes. So the water environment here is critical for us, like I said, not just for our quality of life, but if we're ever going to grow our economy, be able to provide housing for our young people, for the millennials, for the workforce of the future, we need to make sure we take care of our resources here. Otherwise, we're going to be compromised and we will not be sustainable.
So even people upstate know that we on Long Island are a good investment?
We're a good investment, and actually, to the extent that we're successful here, basically they share in that because the state will be healthier as a result.
Once we've got these nitrogen standards established, won't there be a need for a responsible management agency? What that might be and how might that work?
It could be, there's a variety of mechanisms. It could be a public benefit corporation. It could be a county-wide district. It could be a number of individual districts on town-by-town level. There's a number of ways to collaboratively do that, but there also is a regulatory overlay that would come into place. Okay, what's the standards for, say, a septic system? What's the standards for wastewater treatment? What's the standard for these smaller plants? How do you manage effectively fertilizer on lawns or farms or the like? And so there's a variety of programs to get there, but everybody seems to be in agreement that there's going to have to be a management entity that really has responsibility and hopefully funds to make this happen over the long term.
You know, I mean, Dick, as we say here, water knows no geopolitical boundaries. So as a result, what happens in one community affects another community. We all share in the drinking water and the surface waters, the bathing beaches, the fishing, etc. So whatever we do affects everybody else. That being said, we believe as a Regional Planning Council, we need to sort of move above the parochialism of our balkanized system of governments here so that we can actually deal with these issues on a regional basis. Otherwise, we don't believe we're going to be able to actually establish a funding stream necessary to really address all our critical issues.
And part of this is kind of interesting. While everybody who is involved in developing the Long Island Nitrogen Action Plan also said a second thing. We have to continue to make progress on different projects and entity efforts going forward. So wherever there's a no regrets action, and some of these no regrets action can be really big, like the Bay Park wastewater treatment plant, like the large scale sewering systems that are going in Suffolk and the like. You have to grab that opportunity and find every chance you can get to reduce nitrogen pollution, because we know we have a very long way to go, and we have to keep getting projects going. We shouldn't wait to do work until the study is done.
Jim, define that term, no regrets.
Well, no regrets means that we know we have to reduce nitrogen in Long Island. We know that some of the most enriched areas would be densely packed and populated areas. So whatever you can do to address nitrogen in those areas, you know will be necessary. So that's basically a no regrets action, and it's where under any path forward, we know that dollars spent there will be worthwhile.
If I may,
Sure.
Jim mentioned the Bay Park outfall, is that those of us in the environmental community, planning community on Long Island know that the Bay Park outfall has been discharging into western bays of Nassau County for over 50 years. It's been essentially defiling the bay. The highest classification for those waters is for shellfishing. They haven't been open for shellfishing for 50 years. But if we can get the discharge of that outfall out of the bay and into the ocean, then there's potential for not just shellfishing from a recreational standpoint, but also a tremendous economic development generator. So that was one where we said, listen, this is a no-brainer here. There's nobody's going to say we shouldn't get the outfall out of there. And thanks to a lot of creative work being done by Nassau County and Department of Public Works, they've come up with an innovative solution to actually save a couple $100 million by rerouting of the Bay Park discharge over to Wantua and to Cedar Creek tie into their outfall, which will not only save almost $250 million, but it will also probably accomplish the improvement in the bays probably maybe 3 to 4 years ahead of schedule.
And just one of the great things about this is one of the things at the conference today were discussions of how when you do remove pollutants, how the ecology recovers. Now that's one thing that will happen in the Western Bays when this project goes forward. We have a high degree of confidence that will happen. The second thing that's fascinating about it in that particular area, well, these marsh islands, these wetlands, what do they do during a storm? They're resilient. They knock down storm surge, they knock down waves. They actually are a resilient barrier that protects the southern flank of Nassau County. So by removing nitrogen from it, not only are you bringing back the ecology, but you're increasing the barriers of resiliency to the southern portion of Nassau County and all around.
That was clearly identified during Superstorm Sandy. In fact, the Bay Park treatment plant, which was inundated, became the major environmental problem on Long Island, principally because of storm surge. My firm, my engineering firm, had done a project, and we've identified over the last 40 years that there's been a reduction in the marshland and wetlands surrounding Long Island. So not only are we losing the purifying capability, we're also losing the capacity to mitigate storms, wave action, etc. So this is a really, like I said, getting back, a no-brainer, no regrets. Getting the Bay Park discharge out of the bay it's a home run for Long Island.
David, both of these gentlemen had some really great sound bites during the conference. Let's take a look at some of what they had to say.
The Regional Planning Council actually most recently, a little over 5 years ago, in the development of its LI 2035, our sustainability plan for Long Island, where we developed a plan in 4 thematic areas being tax and governance, the economy, environment, infrastructure, and equity, recognized, as Kevin Law alluded to earlier, that the environment and our economy are inextricably linked together.
We do not have a reliable and a sustained funding stream to deal with the challenges of whether it's sewer creation or dealing with a lot of other contamination issues here. And if it were not for Superstorm Sandy, we would not have had $388 million for sewering in Suffolk County. We wouldn't have the $800+ million for Bay Park improvements. So frankly, we need to develop a funding stream that's going to be able to enable us to implement the necessary infrastructure to correct and deal with our challenges here.
I really want to thank the Long Island Clean Water Partnership for what they're doing, and announce today that we do, with all your efforts, and many people put in a lot of time on this, have a scope of the Long Island Nitrogen Action Plan. It was finalized this week. It's available. Angus Eaton is here. We have copies. And this is a program, Kevin Law was involved in it, others were involved in it, where it started off with a $5 million allotment for a nitrogen action plan here on Long Island. We've gone around. We had meetings in the fall, other meetings earlier this year in February where we brought people in. The Nature Conservancy, the group for the East End, everybody else had at it. I think Dr. Gobler here, he had at it. And we scoped out what we need to do to actually take on and understand the problem of nitrogen in Long Island.
Hey, we've been talking to Jim Tierney from the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation, John Cameron, he's from the Long Island Regional Planning Council. Thank you. I hope you guys will keep us informed about our progress going ahead.
And that's a promise.
Okay, good.
Absolutely.
Thank you for joining us. And
Thank
keep
you
up
for
the good
having
work.
us.
And we're going to take a quick time out and take you to the Long Island Pine Barrens, which sits atop the purest drinking water. When we come back, we're going to talk to some officials from Nassau and Suffolk counties about exactly what they're doing, along with the state folks that are with us today. Stay tuned.
The Long Island Pine Barrens. Let's preserve them.
Hey, we're back, and we're here again at the Water Authority's Education Center, and we're talking about the Long Island Clean Water Partnership's 5th annual What Are We Going to Do conference. And to do that are Peter Scully, the czar of water at the county, and his counterpart Rob Walker in the Mangano administration. So you're working for Bologna, you're working for Mangano, but both of you are working for the people of Long Island when it comes to water. Peter, why don't you talk about your particular focus on Suffolk, which is just a little bit different from what you're doing in Nassau?
Sure. Well, one of the things that sets Suffolk County apart from Nassau is that Nassau County wisely is already dealt with its water quality and water management needs by sewering most of the county. 75% of Nassau County is sewered. Suffolk County, on the other hand, is 75% unsewered. And what we've seen over the past 10 years is a degradation in water quality, which really attributed in large part to the fact that much of the county is not sewered and relies instead on these individual systems, cesspools and septics that don't
at individual homes.
Right.
What, 350,000 of them?
362,000 at individual homes. There are others at non-residential structures.
And these wastewater systems are discharging directly into the aquifer, yes?
Well, directly into the ground, and by extension then into the aquifer. So it's a huge problem. As you might imagine, the financial challenge associated with making a change, moving away from the use of these systems, is enough to scare most people. IBM sent a team of experts into Suffolk County to study the problem and concluded that it would be an $8 billion challenge.
Peter, that's an enormous undertaking. What sort of technologies might be available to help us achieve our goal?
Well, there are two different approaches, right? So sewering won't make any practical sense in much of Suffolk County, but there are some areas where we could connect communities to existing sewer plants. That would be an expensive but familiar process for us because we know how to sewer the portions of the county that we have sewered. It's replacing the systems at the 350 or 360,000 single-family homes that are relying on cesspools, which will be something new. We'll be moving from these systems that don't treat wastewater at all to systems that do. There's a variety of technologies out there. They're actually like
this is to reduce nitrogen.
Right. Nitrogen is the primary contaminant of concern because nitrogen is seen as the primary threat to groundwater quality here in Suffolk County.
And the overwhelming majority of it is from wastewater some from fertilizer, but the wastewater.
Right, about 70% is attributed to cesspools and septics. And so moving away from the use of these cesspools that do nothing but drain the wastewater into the ground to active treatment systems will be the big change in Suffolk County. And we're moving in a direction where we're going to be able to make some very tough decisions in the years ahead about how to deploy that technology and whether or not we're going to require people to change out their old systems for new systems.
Will there have to be subsidies of some sort? I mean, are we just going to put the whole burden of upgrading these systems on individuals, or are we trying to work out some system where government can help this transition?
Well, I think it's unrealistic to expect that policymakers will feel comfortable passing that full cost along to individual property owners. And since that's the case, we're going to need to find ways to make those new systems affordable for people by creating grant programs to bring the cost down, and then by adding low-interest financing that allow folks to pay whatever residual they do need to invest in that new system over time, so there's not a big cost impact to an individual property owner.
And they might do it perhaps just at the time of the sale of a house, or some of them may have to come earlier because of their immediate threat to water.
Well, those are other policy decisions that are going to need to be made in the years ahead. We're learning from other states what has been successful and what has not. In the state of Rhode Island, for example, they have in place a cesspool phase-out law that requires replacement at the time of property transfer, but they're only upgrading 400 properties a year, and when you have as many properties,
yeah,
it would take a long time. So these are some of the tough decisions that policymakers will be wrestling with in Suffolk County in the years ahead.
And Rob, the situation as described earlier is different in Nassau County. Describe what is going on there.
So one of our major problems we had, highlighted by Hurricane Sandy, was the Bay Park sewage treatment plant, and obviously it was basically rendered helpless, wiped out completely. Yep. 9 feet of storm tidal surge hit the plant, downgraded our whole entire electrical distribution.
Rob, I think a lot of people in Suffolk County don't understand how many people were affected by that.
Yeah, 500,000, roughly about half of
people.
Nassau County literally could not flush their toilet. And it's bad enough when you tell people that you can't flush your toilet or turn on your water, but when you tell that during a storm, nonetheless, when you don't have power and you're looking and you can't get to a stores aren't open, where my food coming from? It really was a devastating, eye-opening experience for everyone in Nassau County, and more importantly, the residents in Nassau County, which I think enabled us to move forward in an area, in a fashion that Nassau County never had before.
Well, that's sort of this became part of this resiliency campaign. So what we probably needed to do beforehand, we had some incentive from places like 100%. Washington that we don't always hear from, and you sort of jumped in and capitalized on that and said, don't we have to fix it before we protect it in the future?
And we did. $810 million that the counties has now, I guess the federal government and the state, along with the county, is investing in the sewage treatment plant and about 40 pump stations. We highlight at Bay Park, however, we had 40 pump stations that, control the flow and make sure that the actual, the waste gets to the plant. We're also rendered helpless. So they're being mitigated, and doing it the right way, elevating to a 500-year storm level. Where a lot of people look and say, oh yeah, you could raise it 2 feet or 3 feet. No, we're raising it to the level it needs to be, so we don't. These 100-year storms seem to be coming every year. So we got to be much more.
But
prepared.
Even that is not enough, because you folks said this is also the opportunity now to get an ocean outfall pipe.
Correct.
But it was prohibitively expensive, and you told this conference today a breathtaking story of how you have ingeniously figured out how to do it in a way we might be able to afford.
Yeah, it's a very interesting process. So when we talk about the ocean outfall at Bay Park, it's roughly was about a $650 million project, which everyone knows $650 million today could be $1 billion later on. So, we looked at all different fashions. The money just was not there, grants and everything of that nature. And, I understand exactly what Peter's going through with Suffolk with $8 billion. And it's just an enormous undertaking to do these type of things and, the infrastructure. So the county owns a pipe that runs along Sunrise Highway. It's about an 8.5-mile pipe. It's been there for a lot of years, so there has to be some due diligence. But instead of, at a much cheaper price, probably anywhere between $150 to $200 million cheaper, and more importantly, probably can be done 2 or 3 years quicker, we would look to actually pump the treated, and I say treated because it's very important. We don't want naysayers or people not to understand, but it's the treated effluent will actually be then pumped to Cedar Creek outfall. It won't never touch the plant. It'll never become airborne. It'll actually be connected directly to the Cedar Creek outfall, of which we did, recently with the state, with Zach's Bay, which was a great project as well. And we're going to continue to look at these, alternatives, because we want to bring back the bays, which adds to the resiliency of our plant as well.
Rob, you did a great presentation to the conference today. Why don't we take a look and see what you did?
So, obviously the county was looking at ways to, in fact, improve the conditions of the Western Bays. County Executive Mangano has made this a priority since he took office, looking at every different direction on how we can, really solve the problem of the Western Bays. One, we want to work, obviously, with Long Beach. We're working with the city of Long Beach to convert their plant into a pump station. That will actually then be pumped to Bay Park. Now you talk about the residents of Bay Park. They do not want to see more sewage come to their facility in their neighborhood unless you really do some more improvements. Obviously, the ocean outflow becomes that level of improvement that's needed.
And as he was presenting to the audience about what was going on in Nassau, you were presenting to the people in the audience about what was going on in Suffolk. Let's take a look at that too.
But this is a model of the Water Quality Protection District that I kind of conceived on behalf of the county executive. I'm not going to waste a lot of time talking about it now, but as you can see, if it were implemented as designed, it would provide significant annual proceeds on a recurring basis to address all of these needs. And most importantly, if you look in the middle of it, in Suffolk County being as diverse as it is, having public confidence in a countywide entity is both a critical need and a significant challenge. And we still think it's a good idea to let the people decide whether or not to invest in water quality protection. We will continue to have that discussion with elected officials. And of course, as we've made clear, we think this is a potentially viable idea, but we don't think we have the exclusive market on good ideas. If anybody has a suggestion as to how the current proposal could be improved, very anxious to have that discussion. If somebody has an idea that's a better idea that would provide a stable and recurring revenue source and get us to the same place, we're anxious to talk about that too. We're less anxious to talk to folks who say they don't like our idea, but they don't really have an idea.
Great, that was excellent.
And Rob, you had a chance to see some of the other presentations during the conference this morning. What did you hear that was particularly interesting to you?
You know what, I think the work that Suffolk County is doing, I say all the time, we have to share information. And I think both county executives, County Executive Mangano and County Executive Malone, have worked together on so many issues, but primarily also here on this. And the work that's being done looking at the alternative programs, because we do have a problem still on the North Shore that people aren't highlighting, because as much as we have a much smaller amount of homes that aren't sewered in the North Shore, however, they probably can never be sewered as well. So looking at the alternatives and having picked one, I think, in each legislative district in the lottery, I think that's something that we would look to do. I said we learn from what they did. We don't have to reinvent the wheel, and I think that's very crucial. It's also interesting what the towns are doing. Each one individualized, putting it together as one package. The problem that North Hempstead may have is different from the problem, obviously, that Brookhaven would have. But it's interesting listening how everyone's trying to deal with this issue collectively.
And Peter, what did you hear from around the island that you found either promising or maybe even disturbing?
And let me qualify that question too, because you've had experience in government at the town, at the county, and at the state levels. So looking at all of the things we heard from local groups that were doing something, we heard from the scientific community, we heard from state, county officials. What impressed you? You're not easily impressed.
Well, the first thing is that I think it's clear that 5 years ago, many of us were working together and trying to get the attention of policymakers about the need to address this issue. We had not gotten a lot of traction. Clearly, we have so many things underway now. We've made more progress in the last 3 years, I think, than were made in the prior 20. That's one important point. The second is that there appears to be a recognition of the importance of making sure that the general public is aware of the implications of not addressing this problem.
Something you can't not do.
There's a significant investment that's going to need to be made here, and people, I think, get it. If you connect the dots for them and say, look around you. You live on an island surrounded by water. The beaches are closed. You can't eat the clams. You're getting notices from the health department how many servings of finfish you can eat a month. You're hearing about algal blooms and neurotoxins in Northport Harbor. There's a problem here. We need to step up and address it. And the fact that the people at the conference understand that making the public aware and getting the public on board is critically important, I think resonated with me.
Hey, we've been talking to Peter Scully from Suffolk County and Rob Walker from Nassau County about efforts to reverse the declining water quality in Suffolk. seemed optimistic. You seem to be doing what you're supposed to do there. We thank you for your work, and we thank you for participating in the conference and taking some time to come over to the program and talk to us about it.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks again to the Suffolk County Water Authority. They did a great job, this Education Center, making it available to us. And thanks to David North of WALK. We appreciate your emceeing the event. You did a good job yourself. And join us next time, and we'll be introducing you to the founders of the Long Island Clean Water Partnership. I'm Dick Hamper.
And I'm David North.
Thanks for watching.